They said that they were opened and then they shut her down again.
Okay, I call to order the Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, April 8, 2019. Before approving the agenda, I reached out today and invited Dr. HELM, Chief of Staff for Tumbler Medical Clinic. So I'd like to add him as a petition for delegations under 5.1, moving the Tumbler Ridge Youth Soccer to 5.2. So I'll need that voted on by council. Everybody's in favor of adding it? In favor? Carried. If I can get approval of the agenda as amended. Councilor Norberry?
That the Monday, April 8th, 2019 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as amended.
Seconder? Councilor Kirby? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of minutes. March 11, 2019 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation? Councilor Lehman?
That the March 11th, 2019 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder? Councilor Majinski? All in favor? 4, the business arising from the minutes. Anything, council? Okay. Move right on to number 5, petitions and delegations. 5.1, Dr. HELM, Chief of Staff for the Tumbler Medical Clinic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you again today for taking the phone call and then being able to make yourself available tonight to council in regards to the lab tech spot being left open for 3 weeks and a bit. Can you just give us an update?
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the invitation as well. I think this is just the way it should be when we have a problem, to have the opportunity here to talk about it and to put our heads together and try and find, identify the problem but also find solutions. So I really appreciate being here. I am representing, as Chief of Staff, I am representing Northern Health. I'm not just, the doc, I'm actually representing Northern Health here, so I'm speaking on behalf of Northern Health. But essentially, as you know, we have a short-term problem. We don't have a long-term problem. In the long term, on the 1st of May, the new lab tech is starting work. We haven't seen the whites of his eyes yet. Nothing is guaranteed until the person actually starts. But by everything we understand, we have a new lab tech, a permanent long-term lab tech, starting on May the 1st. And Peter Martin has done a lot of really good work in many fields, like we're not only going to have a lab tech, we're going to have a medical lab assistant times 2, one and a casual. So these are people that will be able to take blood, do a lot of the admin stuff, and take some of the pressure off that lab tech. So the problem when you've got, it's like a 24/7, forever you're on call, and it can wear the position down so much that somebody just takes it, and then after a few months they want to leave and go somewhere else. So things like this are all designed to take the pressure off that lab tech. And also working with the new X-ray tech that's starting, that person we're hoping will be able to do some emergency lab work, so that again the lab tech gets a break. So there's a lot of really good things that are happening in the long term, and including the possibility of hiring a casual to cover both Chetwynd and Tumbler Ridge for vacation and things like this. Wherever there's a need, that person would help out. And even as far as addressing students, like the lab tech student class and the potential grad class for the future, looking towards Tumbler Ridge is a cool place to move to. So a lot of really good stuff has happened there. And this was precipitated when a couple of months ago the previous lab tech gave her notice and has left. So the last 3 months or so we've really been in trouble. And Chetwynd has helped us a lot. We've had agency techs helping out, paid people, private folks. And we've had Fort Nelson, like their lab techs, 2 weeks each, times 2. So 4 weeks we had coverage through, out of the goodness of their hearts, the Fort Nelson lab techs coming and helping us out here. So it's been a little bit spotty, but for the most part, we've actually got through the last few months. So now we have a problem. And today is the 8th, and the new lab tech starts on the 1st of May. So that's 23 days, which is unprecedented. It's never happened before. We've had a few days here and there. We've never had 23 days before. And it's a kind of a perfect storm situation. So the reason it's happened, normally Chetwynd would have 4 or 5 lab techs, and they would be sending people to help us, and they've got a crisis. So they're down to 1, and they've had to bring a casual in from Nova Scotia, because the Chetwynd lab can't operate. It has to have 2 to operate. So they had to bring a casual in from Nova Scotia that has lived in Chetwynd before. So they're just getting by. So that's why Chetwynd couldn't help us like they normally would. That's why we're in this situation. The agency tech position is posted. It's still open. Anyone can apply anytime, but there have been no applicants through the agency tech. So if anyone here knows anyone, this is the time to get the word out there. And the new hire, the person that's starting on the 1st of May, had to obviously to give notice at their previous position, and that's why it's the 1st of May. So I've been absolutely clear with whoever I've spoken to, whether it's Northern Health. I've actually spoken to the College of Physicians and Surgeons, done various things. I said this, it's not okay. It puts patients at risk. It puts my colleagues, my physician colleagues at risk, and it puts nurses at risk. It puts everybody at risk, and there can even be a snowball effect. And the worse things get, the worse things get. So, at a personal level, I just don't feel it's okay for a community to have to face this. The only way that I can personally live with it is if I say I have to know that every single thing has been tried to try and prevent it from happening, or to address it, or to deal with it. And that includes coming here tonight and seeing is there anything that we can do together. So the one thing, the timing is actually very good, because here's your council meeting tonight. Tomorrow night I've got what's called NEMAC, Northeast Medical Advisory Committee. That's all the chiefs of staff in the Northeast get together, along with the chief operating officer, the medical director, Peter Martin will be there. So it's a teleconference. We have them once a month, but it's actually happening tomorrow night. And, that is my last resort. I'm going to sound the alarm. I'm going to tell them exactly what I've told you tonight. This is not okay. This shouldn't happen to any community. And I'm essentially going to beg my chief of staff colleagues to work on, their lab personnel to see, again, Fort Nelson, whatever. It's been tried before, but sometimes, you need not the official job postings and stuff, you need the personal connection. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night, and I'll report back on Wednesday morning to see if we get anywhere with that. So I think that's important, that that's my last resort to try and make sure that no stone has been left unturned. Other than that, then we can talk mitigation. If we have to go through this, how do we make it less burdensome? There are only a few things we can do. The people that are not urgent lab work can wait for the 1st of May. Social media to get the word out for people to carpool to Dawson Creek and Chetwynd if they have to go. Maybe, I'm not sure if councils can support TR Cares to enable them to offer more rides per week. These are little mitigation things. If we have to go through it, those are things that could be done. I know from your side, you can always contact the MLA, you can contact the Ministry of Health, you can contact the CAO of Northern Health. I'm not sure how much of those things actually make a difference, but that's, as a council, these are things that are open to you, obviously. And the other thing is things that we've discussed, with our mayor and with yourself and with Councillor Howe in recent meetings of that committee, was if there are ways for council to kind of sweeten the pie, and incentives to try and find ways to, if there's an incentive, maybe somebody from Fort Nelson or wherever might be more likely to want to come. The problem is it's very short notice, and they have to uproot themselves and come here. But I know that when there's talk of financial incentives, then we get, there's collective agreements and there's unions, and it can be tricky. But there are other incentives one can provide as well. But from my side, what I want to be able to do is go to that NEMAC meeting tomorrow night and say, I was invited to speak to the mayor and council, and here is where they stand. Here's what they want me to tell you. And if there are any decisions on incentives or whatever, I could obviously convey that tomorrow night. So that's, from my side, you can sense I'm not happy about this, but at the same time, we've got to try and do our best and either get through it or find out some way to prevent it from happening at the last moment.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And I was actually at the clinic today and was supposed to have blood. So that's how I found out. So I know when you phoned me there on my cell, I was already dealing with it through emails to council. So
Sure.
Does council have any questions or comments? Councillor Al.
Yeah, so I think, this has been a long time coming to get to this point where, the rubber meets the road, or we got to put our money where our mouth is. And honestly, like this is an agency lab tech that we're talking about here. This is not a full-time position. But if we have to get somebody in here for 3 weeks, I think we should at least try to do something to sweeten the pot. And, if that means, throwing out a wild number to say something like the district of Tumbler Ridge is willing to match $10 per hour or add an additional $10 per hour to whichever agency lab tech comes in, that may be something that at least we've offered something to sweeten the deal. We're looking at potentially, 3 weeks, 40 hours a week, 120 hours. 120 hours times $10 an hour is $1,200. I mean, to me, to say that we have lab and tech here for $1,200 is a drop in the bucket. It's what our residents expect in my mind, and I think we should at least be able to, as a council tonight, come up with some type of a number or a decision that we could at least give to Dr. Helm, that he can take to his meeting tomorrow and say, this is where the district of Tumbler Ridge is. They're willing to put their money where their mouth is. This isn't just them complaining. They're not happy with the level of service. They're to the point that they're so dissatisfied with the services that we're receiving from Northern Health that we're willing to financially get involved and try to do something to sweeten the pot to get these people in here. That's my take on it, and that's my challenge to council tonight, is that we need to come up with a number that you're comfortable with, so Charles Helm can leave here tonight with a number in his mind that he's can bring to that meeting. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Any more council comments, questions? Councillor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Krakelka. So, Dr. Helm, is it money? Is that the way, what you see as the best? Or would you say like we have housing possibly available for someone to come in?
Yeah, so there's always help one can provide with transportation from wherever it might be, or with accommodation. I think accommodation typically is already offered.
Okay.
So I don't think that, I think it's there already. It's not an extra thing that one would be offering. And, as I've said, the problem that I've seen when money gets offered is that you hear of, we can't do it. But, I always, my approach to something like that is, well, if you're smart enough, there's a way to do it. Just try find a way to get around, if it's a loophole, or to get around an obstacle, if you put your mind to it. But I know that if it's a money offer, there will be not pushback, but saying, well, thanks, but we can't do it for this reason or whatever. But that doesn't mean the offer can't be made. I'm just saying it's not as simple as here's the offer and now everything's fine.
Right.
But I just want to say I appreciate the comments that this is exactly, my take on how there should be collaboration between yourselves and Northern Health. When we hit a problem, we've got to work together to try and solve it. So I'm happy to be here.
So yeah, I just wanted, and I appreciate that. Just one thing, just so everybody's remembered that we're in a P&P, so if we decide that coming out of this debate or whatever, we're going to do money, then we'd have to call for a special meeting to approve that. So just so council's aware of that, we can't do that here. But I'm fully in agreement to doing something, and if we have to call for a special meeting, as long as council would be aware of that and be able to make the meeting, it'd have to be 24 hours. So, Councilor Nobre.
Yeah, so I think what it comes down to is whatever it takes, right? I mean, honestly, I'm hesitant in offering a cash incentive. I think that sets a bad precedent. But at the end of the day, we need to do what's required. And if it's a per hour addition, that's what we have to do. But my question would be, it comes down to access, right? So can we up the TR Cares routes, like have them go up more than once a week, have them transport to Chetwynd where there is service, or Dawson, and what that would cost to fund that. I mean, would it be to Dr. Helm, do you have any ideas on how we could if that's a possibility.
Yeah, no, I wanted to be prepared tonight, so I spoke
It's
with Roy
quick.
College, and you know, I know that there would be willingness. I mean, obviously they're there to serve the community. So when something like this happens, it's a short-term thing. It's a 3-week thing. I know they would do their utmost to provide an extra day of service, whether it's the Chetwynd or what. Currently they do Monday, Thursday to Dawson Creek, but in theory they could do, you know, a Wednesday to Chetwynd or something like that. It's feasible, and one would just have to talk to them and see, you know, would money make a difference there or not, or are there other ways that they could be supported? I'm fully in agreement with you about the difficulties with setting a precedent with the cash thing. The only argument I would have with that is that, as far as we know, it's not like, you know, we haven't got a lab tech, we've got 3 weeks, then there's an agency nurse, then we've got another gap, and it's going to happen time and time again. As far as we know, we have a lab tech starting on 1st of May, so this, and a new x-ray tech starting, I don't know the date, but it's soon. So all these issues we've been having, you know, if things just roll out according to how we think they are going to, it's going to be behind us. So it is a one-off situation, it's not a recurring situation to the best of our knowledge.
Councilor Majinski?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Kotelko. Just a quick question, Dr. Helm. The NEMAC meeting is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Would we be able to have a follow-up after that meeting? See if they have some ideas before we jump the gun and start asking to support you guys with money. Maybe they have some other options or ideas, and then maybe come back to us right away and see if that would be something, and just say that we're in full support and in which way we can, but at this time,
Yeah.
if that would be an option.
Just so you know, I'm at a personal level, I'm organising a medical conference in Jasper this weekend, so I'm gone on Wednesday to organise this conference in Jasper, so I'll be
Away from it.
I'll be away.
Okay.
I mean, you can deal with others, but I mean, I won't be personally available to try and help with this from Wednesday on. You know, to me, the way, so many things have been tried already, you know, so what I'm planning at NEMAC is just to say this. From my perspective, as Chief of Staff in a remote community, this shouldn't be allowed to happen. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying this is not okay, what's happening. And then going to my colleagues, who are the Chiefs of Staff, Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, Fort Nelson, Fort St. John, and saying, you know, I need your help. You know, and I often find the best way to get something to happen is to ask for help. You know, I'm here. You know, so please help us. You know, you wouldn't want this to happen to your community. How do we prevent it from happening to Tumbler Ridge? And see where it goes. So, but that's the only thing I can do tomorrow night.
Okay. So I just wanted to know if there's like a contingency plan for things like this. If there's like sick leave, stress leave, people moving away, and then what's the time frame for a turnaround to have somebody fill a position in?
Yeah, and this is the problem, that, you know, this is imminent now. This is not, we're not talking a month ahead. We're talking
Right now.
today. It's already happened today. The patients were told today for the next 23 days after Chetwynd and Dawson Creek, and we're talking two things here. We're talking about the inconvenience to those people. We're also talking to people who are coming in with an emergency, and where, you know, the ability to get quick lab work can be, not always, because I mean you can do a lot of things without lab, but there are some times when you really need that lab work to make a diagnosis and to give that patient the proper treatment. So there's the inconvenience issue, but there's also, you know, what happens in a true emergency, and that's what puts my colleagues at risk. They haven't got what they need.
So I got Councilor Lehman, Councilor Kirby, then myself. Councilor?
Thank you. Just to get these positions filled, I have no issues with sweetening the pot. The other thing is, if we want to get somebody to come in and fill these positions, I don't necessarily like the idea of poaching from this area. I would rather see somebody come from outside this area so that we don't create that problem for another community in the area. I know that, you know, it's too bad for them, but I would rather have them come from outside. And as far as these people that are coming, I think maybe something like a retention bonus would be something to look at, so that these people actually do want to stay, and not so that we don't keep losing these positions over and over again.
So the suggestion from Councillor Howe of, you know, as I see it, it would apply to an agency position, and it would apply to, the ideal person, in an ideal world, there would be, let's say, a casual lab tech in Fort Nelson that's not actually working right now, but who could drop everything. So we're not actually poaching, but there's a casual that we bring here, but that suggestion could apply equally to the agency position, which is advertised, so it's a top-up, or could apply to a casual in Fort Nelson. As I say, the problem is, and I can't answer that, the problem is if there's a cash offer, how Northern Health deals with that and whether it's legal and whether you get into trouble with union. That's a whole different issue. But, that's, as I see it, that's a Northern Health issue. It's not a council issue.
Councillor Kirby.
Thank you. Councillor Lehman has part of my question answered. I think you're going about it the right way, contacting your colleagues and asking for help. And I think council should be ready to, when you come back with that information, council should be ready to send out the letters that you have suggested to our MLAs, etc. And it's unfortunate that our staff here at the clinic have to work under these conditions, because it can't be easy for them if they don't have a lab. But, just on the money, and you say sweeten the pot, it's just how do we figure out to do this? Is it maybe like a casual relief worker per diem that we can offer that, is more of a, thanks for coming in to help us? I don't know, but that's something that we really have to look at, is how, if we are going to offer money, how do we do it in a way that they can accept it and they'll come in to help out when we need it?
So I have not presumptuous here, but one thing that I could, if there was agreement from council that the council is willing to provide financial incentives in a way that are acceptable to Northern Health, that I could take to a meeting without any specific decision on exactly what form it takes. So that I could do, if that's what this meeting decides. And then I'm sort of putting it, if that's accepted in good faith, as I hope would be, then it would be someone from Northern Health liaising with someone from this building as to how can it happen. But it's not a thing that could take weeks and weeks. It has to be kind of immediate.
Again, I agree. And I just wanted to hit on the one thing we talked about, TR cares. And that's great for the people that don't have an emergency lab or doctor that needs an emergency lab work. And you kind of touched on that. So I've worked over there, and sometimes when heart attacks come in or a stroke, you need the lab immediately. So this to me is, like you said, it's in dire need. We've hit that spot now that we need to do or react, and I'm ready to react. So I definitely have Councillor Howe's ready to make a motion, and maybe Mr. Wallbell to help us with that. But I am fully supporting it. Whether we sweeten the pot and Northern Health makes a decision on how that happens or doesn't happen, I think it's up to them. But I do appreciate it. So, Councillor Howe?
So my thing is like what Councillor Norbury talked about a precedent. Yeah, this is a precedent that we'd be setting. I don't think it's a bad thing to set this precedent. I think it's actually a good thing to put out there to say Tumbler Ridge is fed up with not having nurses and not having lab and x-ray and tech, and we're willing to sweeten the pot. Sorry, BC government. This is what we're willing to do to get to that next level, to get the level of service that we want in Tumbler Ridge. The amount of money that I threw out as a $10 an hour wage represents $1,200 for 3 weeks worth of service. It's absolutely nothing to this council, right? It is literally nothing. That's $20,000 a year, right? It's if we had to have an agency tech that we were topping up $10 an hour for a whole year. It shouldn't even be a debate in here. It should just be, how do we as a council put it forward on a P&P meeting so that he can take that information and go with it. I'm flabbergasted that we're not all just, okay, how do we make this work? Because if we are saying that health is our #1 thing in Tumbler Ridge, that was what our priority is, forget about the rest of it. Find a way to make this work. It is a 3-week short-term window that we're trying to fix for an agency tech. This is not the required process for every person who will be hired on. That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about trying to fill the long-term gaps. It is to fix the immediate problem that we have today. And so the way it was explained to me so that I could understand the importance of a lab tech, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Helm, Mr. Krakauka was saying something similar to it. If you have a heart attack or come in as a suspected heart attack, they have to run a blood test to find out something specific in your blood to tell how they are going to treat you. If we don't have that lab tech at this time, you guys have to ship that person out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can tell you it's not fun as the physician working in Emerge to phone your colleagues in Dawson Creek and say, yeah, I think we've got a heart attack happening here, but we can't do any lab work, so can you just take them, please? We should be doing thrombolysis. And if we're talking heart attacks, often, we can make the call based on an electrocardiogram, which we could still do, but, you feel a lot more sure of yourself, and especially, inexperienced physicians. Well, if you've been doing it for 30 years, you kind of, what you're doing, and you can take, I hate to say it, but you can actually take chances. I haven't got the lab work, but hey, I'm going to do this anyway because I think I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But I don't expect that of new graduates or folks that haven't been in it for a long time, and they're actually putting themselves at risk by doing it. That's what I don't like. Yeah.
So just to finish that off, I don't know how to pull this together in a P&P meetings. I don't know all the rules and regulations and how that all works, but I know what I want to get to is I want Dr. Helm to be able to leave here tonight to have the confidence of this council that we're willing to put money forward, whatever that number has to be. I don't know how we put that together into a P&P vote. I'm going to ask Mr. Wall's advice on how we formulate some type of a motion there. I feel like I've got the betterment of council here, and I think when we actually have this vote, it would pass that we could give him some type of direction leaving here. And if we then have to have an emergency meeting tomorrow to come up with some financial amount to do it, then we do it. That's what you do when you set something as your number one priority.
And I fully agree with that, and I think you're correct, and that's why I said we're in a P&P, and it comes down to the money thing. But we'll go to Mr. Wall, but I believe if that happens, and that's the wish of council, then we just do call for a special meeting. And I'll get you next. Mr. Wall?
That's correct. You can't authorize the expenditure of any funds today. You can make a recommendation that gets forwarded to a special meeting whenever council is able to call it.
Okay. Councilor Ray.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? How much notice do we need to have a special meeting of council?
24 hours from whenever time. So the motion made right now, that clock's wrong, so the earliest we could have a meeting tomorrow night would be 5:30. With the idea, and Councilor, I can't put words in the council. To me, if it's supported tonight, to me it would look like it would be supported at the special meeting, but again, that would be a debate and another vote. So, but I would think the direction, if that was to go through here, that Mr. Helm would be able to walk away knowing that we're willing to do something. If Northern Health can find a way that it fits within their union, and that's not my problem, so.
And it'll have to be a little bit more time, because once council makes that decision, we'd have to ask Ms. Torville to step out and post the public notice.
Sure,
We can't
my
just come
apologies.
from here.
My apologies. Sorry.
So 24 hours though, right?
24 hours from the time we post it, from whenever staff would be able to post it.
Okay.
Could be 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. Councilor Ray?
Yeah, I guess my last concern is we just threw a number out there of $10 an hour. Is that enough? If this is something we're moving forward to, maybe we should just have a cap limit of X dollars versus dollars per hour, right? Looking at their postings, $10 is a decent chunk of change, but I think they're getting about $30 at least an hour, right? So I'm concerned that if they're not coming on 30 an hour, maybe 10 isn't enough. So maybe what we should do is talk about a cap limit about what we're willing to give per week, and we can allow Dr. Helm to take that to the Northeast meeting. These are my only thoughts.
Councilor.
And I don't know the right number. I just threw a number out to get the conversation started. And it could be 12, it could be 30, it could be double time, it could be time and a half. I'm not sure what we go, but that's where I want to get the flavor of council here. If we are headed in this direction, then that's the debate that we need to be having, is how much we want to sweeten the pot by. The reason I say hourly is to me, it's an easier way to track it. And again, don't forget that we may be setting a precedent here, that we may need an agency nurse or an agency tech that we cannot fill come July. And we may want to say, okay, are we willing to do this again for an agency nurse that we can't get? I don't know. But that's where I say, any monetary amount in my mind should open the eyes to the BC government, should open the eyes to Northern Health, and should get a conversation started that is way far reaching beyond what we're going to do in this council. To say that there's a municipality in Northern British Columbia willing to start funding their medical services to some degree on their own because they're so fed up with the amount of lack of services that we get and how we get stepped over up here. The fact that we're willing to come to the table with some amount of monetary amount, to me, that conversation gets started, it'll be far reaching. Whether or not we can do it or not, I don't know. I've wanted to do this for quite some time to do something to sweeten the pot. And if he may go and talk to these folks, that's totally illegal for the Union Act or whatever, and you can't do it, and you've got to come up with some type of step in that, you know, Councillor Kirby had alluded to. I don't know how, but I think that coming out of this meeting, that he can go tomorrow and say, council is actually gonna vote on this tomorrow of doing some amount. So, I mean, I would start the idea at time and a half, maybe. $10, time and a half might be a good way to, we pay 50% more of their wage is what time and a half would equal to. So, while they're here. And another thing about housing as well, we already do provide housing to them, do we not, Mr. Wall? For agency nurses and agency techs, so they already are using our stuff when they come here. That's something that maybe Northern Health has always seemed to get, but it has gone by the wayside that is something that people of Tumbler Ridge may not know that is something that we're already doing to help them out, right? So
it's not that I want to get away from a debate or get going or whatever, or get off the topic. If there's any questions for Mr. Helm, maybe we'll take them. Maybe we can move this, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it now that the agenda's been approved, so I'll go to staff, but maybe we can add this down for more debate, a motion made, and we can contact Mr. Helm after. I just know we have other delegation waiting. I mean, if we want to debate it now and come up with a motion, I'm fine with that too, so it's, you know, looking for direction of council, what you guys would like to do there, but I got Councilor first, if you had something for Mr. Helm. No. Councilor Majinski?
Just one last question. What time is the meeting? PM?
6 o'clock is my meeting.
Okay.
Good job.
and I'd like to debate it now. I'd like to finish it off now. You guys approved to put this ahead of soccer rather than before, after soccer, so let's deal with it. We're this far into it now. You know,
Does somebody have a motion they want to put on the floor?
well, I want to hear from council. What do you guys think? We've talked a couple of different numbers. Throw a number out.
But if we put a motion on the floor, then we debate the motion and make a vote. So if somebody has a number that they're thinking that.
I know how it works, Daryl, but what I'm saying is if we get people to speak up and say, I think $10 is too much, I think $20 is too high, we can start leading towards where a motion could be formed.
Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Krakowka. I don't think I think council has put our health issues at the forefront, and I think we're all I feel that we're gonna wanna move forward so that we can see this situation resolved. I don't know what kind of a number that I don't know if we have to come up with a number tonight, but just know that if Dr. Helm leaves here knowing that council is ready to back him and he comes back and lets us know what needs to be done, then I think we have a special meeting and we get it done. So as far as the money, I don't know if we can even do it, so I don't know where the money, what kind of amount to put on it.
And just on that,
Yeah.
I'm prepared to, whether it's the $10 time and a half. I mean, honestly, I don't know, like you said at Councilor O'Brien in regards to is $10 enough? I mean, my thing is, I mean, again, I don't know the number either, but I'd like to see Mr. Helm leave here as chief of staff, being able to go to this meeting via teleconference and say, Tumbler Ridge is offering up $2,000 for 3 weeks to get somebody here for a lap. We have an emergency here, let me tell you, $2,000 is nothing when we have one of the doctors have an MI that comes in and they can't do nothing, and now we're scrambling. Let's say our ambulance is out of town on a different transfer, or they're dealing with another call, and all of a sudden now we have somebody that gets driven in that needs to be shipped out of town, get blood work, so they can know what the diagnosis is, and they're not there. What's $2,000 in my mind? Councilor Majinski.
I'll just put out a number, $3,000. Let them know that we're serious about what is going on. It's a set number, and we can do it break it down as an hourly rate, whatever. But 3,000, done. That's our cap, and then we can go from there. That seems reasonable.
Councilor?
So that's based on roughly $1,000 a week, you know, and maybe, you know, if $30 an hour is the wage they get paid, and you're paying, you know, 50% more. So that's what time and a half would equal, 50% more. You'd be paying somewhere in that neighborhood $15 an hour times 40 hours in a week. So, you know, that's way under what Councilor Mazinski is suggesting. I think that's a good idea. I think 3,000 is something good to start with. Maybe we just start with that and we figure out whether it's hourly wage or 50% or something. At least he knows, he leaves here, they're willing to do $1,000 a week until we get this filled.
Yeah, and I think we have to figure out if it's hourly, because honestly, there'll be an emergency call in, so if they've, you know, that could be over 40 hours, right, Mr. Helm? Yeah, so, you know, they're gonna work this, but if they all of a sudden start getting called in at night for emergency calls, that goes past 40 hours, so I know we're basing it off 40 hours, Councillor Howland, I just wanna say
Yeah,
that if we're doing it hourly, just be open that it might not be 120 hours a week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Council could be more. But anybody else from the council? Councilor Norbert.
Yeah, whatever amount is what we're gonna do. My concern is moving forward. Now, we're willing to pay temp nurse $1,000. Are we gonna do that for every temporary doctor, temp nurse that comes in to cover holidays? Because this is very similar to those situations. Like, we have multiple doctors that come in regularly to cover when doctors are taking time off, sick leave, whatever. Where do we constitute an emergency? Is it only when we can't have that temporary staff person filled, or is it whenever that temporary relief person position is filled? We're always going to have that $1,000 increment on there, right? Where is that line? And if we were able to add a little more specificity when we're offering this bonus, that'll alleviate my thoughts and concerns. Because moving forward, like, we are setting a precedent in that every time we're short, we're going to give them this bonus every time.
Councilor Howland.
Okay, yeah, and so for me, the precedent is set when Charles Helm feels it important to come sit in front of us and explain to us this is the first time that he's ever seen it this bad, that 23 days will be without lab. Like, he's been here as long as I've been here, and when he says it to us that this is unprecedented, he's never seen this before, that should be a wake-up call for us to say it's time to get on board. And that's my take on it. If Charles Helm feels that we've had a 3-day window where we haven't been able to hire a temp nurse, I don't think he's coming in. You know, he's going to come in when we can't get a temp nurse to fill in or whatever, or temp or agency nurse, whatever you call them, sorry. That's when we make that call. We have to collaborate with Northern Health when they say to us, we're in an unprecedented time. And I agree with you. I mean, I don't want to see this happen every time that we need somebody along the way. But when Charles Helm has come in and said to us, this is unprecedented, we should herald that.
So I had myself up next, and Councilor Howe hit most of what I had to say. Again, I'm going to throw it out there. If somebody on council has a recommendation that they would like to put forward, this is the way of moving forward. Councilor Howe.
A recommendation forward that council directs staff to, how do I want to word this, to have a meeting to approve this tomorrow? Is that how we would do this?
So I would say that council forwards to a special meeting tomorrow an unbudgeted amount of whatever your
$1,000 a week.
$1,000 a week to be made available for Northern Health for lab tech temporary relief attraction.
For this particular time is what I'm talking to, right? Because I don't want this to be 3 weeks down the road, we continue it on for another week or whatever, right? So.
Okay. Jane, did you catch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seconder. Councilor Kirby. Any more discussion? Councilor Howe.
Again, we don't quite have figured out how we're going to figure that out. We can talk about that tomorrow, but at least Charles Helm can or Dr. Helm, sorry, can leave with that and know that it may be voted on tomorrow. And we figure that out tomorrow night, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So this could be moved forward to, I'll deal with Mr. Wall later, how to call a special meeting. Call a special meeting, and then we'll come in and debate that and make a vote on it. And I would just hope that, I mean, I believe Mr. Helm would be having this meeting tomorrow at 6, which will probably not make before a meeting unless, again, we can do it. But, you know, if council supports this now, even with a debate tomorrow night, the vote can change. So just want to make sure you know that. So.